SNOWTRAX is sponsored by Polaris, Think Outside, Yamaha, revs your heart, FXR Racing, celebrating 25 years of speed, and by iPone Lubricants, exclusively distributed by Parts Canada.
A few years ago, Yamaha made what I would consider to be a very bold move for the snowmobile industry. The idea was this: the dealers were piled up with new non-current models that were selling year after year at huge discounts just to get them off the showroom floor, but this created a bunch of problems. First, and I do believe of great importance to Yamaha, was that having non-current sleds sell at crazy discounts was having an effect on the value of new sleds people had bought when it was time to upgrade. Basically, why would I buy your used Viper when I can buy the exact same sled, 1 year old but still brand new, for only a fraction more? Yamaha has always prided themselves on how their sleds maintain their value. Something had to change to protect that. The second reason selling non-current sleds at huge discounts was problematic is something much more obvious and easier to understand. It hurts everyone's bottom line. Everyone has to make their cut when a sled sells new. So many customers gripe about how much the manufacturer makes or how much the dealer makes on a sale. I'm here to tell you it's not as much as you think, and every time a discount is applied, that number drops, which means less money for Yamaha to spend on R&D and new products, and less money for your dealer to reinvest into his business to provide you with the quality of service you expect. The final reason the oversaturation of non-current Yamaha models was a problem is that it's a perpetual problem. Each year they build more new models. Each year some of those new models wouldn't sell and would end up as non-currents. Each year some existing non-currents would sell as well, and some years the numbers averaged out and sometimes they didn't. But the non-current problem wasn't just Yamaha's, it was all the manufacturers. Yamaha was simply the first to get fed up enough to actually do something about it. So the solution they came up with, as stated earlier, was to cut back on new model production almost entirely. For 1 year they built almost no new sleds. Their focus was on clearing out the non-currents, getting the crates out of dealer storage buildings, and getting the pipeline of sleds clean enough to bring in a full line of new sleds the next season without adding to the problem of non-current backlog. The plan worked, and it worked well. After taking a season off, the backlog of unsold Yamaha sleds was nearly cleaned out. Buyers weren't afraid to buy a new sled because they knew they wouldn't see that same sled for sale at a crazy discount 12 months later. Resale numbers came back, as did profitability for both Yamaha and their dealers. This was definitely a risky move, and it may not have worked for other manufacturers, but it did work for Yamaha. Since then, it seems like Yamaha has a renewed excitement for the snowmobile industry. Products are evolving and new models are showing up in the lineup each year. In fact, in 2021, Yamaha has one of the most complete lineups in the industry with models that cover every segment, all the way from the youth to the 180 horsepower hypersled segment and everything in between. Obviously, the SR120 is where a kid would start their journey in the snowmobile industry. The importance of these little sleds cannot be understated. It's sleds like the 120s that grab kids' attention and begin fostering that deep-seated passion for the sport that will stick with them for the rest of their lives. Any passionate snowmobiler knows exactly what I'm talking about, and many of us started on either used sleds or, for us older guys, small vintage sleds when we were young. I've seen this happen right in front of my face with my own daughters. It wasn't a year after they were born that Grandpa Mark went out and procured two 120s, maybe a few years before it was needed. But when they were finally old enough to get on these little sleds and start riding, it's all they wanted to do all winter long. Proud dad moment and proud grandpa moment. I'll be honest, seeing them ripping around on real snowmobiles with those massive grins on their faces, well, that one hit me right in the feels.
SNOWTRAX is brought to you by the regions of Quebec by the sea. Discover our ride ideas.
As time marched on, as it seems to do, we were presented with another dilemma. What do you do when your kids outgrow the 120? That next step sled was conspicuous by its absence in the industry. Then along came Yamaha with the reintroduction of the iconic Snow Scoot. It was, quite literally, the perfect step up from a 120, and the second my oldest sat on our test unit, she was smitten by it. It was exactly what she needed, and it kept that passion for riding snowmobiles burning. The miles that Snow Scoot had on it after one season was shocking. I actually started to lose weight from all the walking I did out into the lake or out into the field carrying a gas can because the Scoot ran out of gas again. It was awesome. At this point, it seemed like the industry was slowly waking up to the reality that if you want this sport to continue into the future, you have to start developing little sledders now. Credit has to be given where it's due, and Polaris's introduction of the 550 EVO was a dream come true for parents all over North America. If you think Yamaha was going to let that sled go without competition though, you're dead wrong. This season we have the perfect step up from the Snow Scoot with the Venom. It's going to be the next sled my oldest daughter gets on now that she's pretty much outgrown the Scoot. But the Venom isn't just for young riders. It's also the perfect sled for people who don't need or want a big sled with massive power. So often we can look at sleds only from the stepping stone perspective. The Venom, however, is super fun even for adults, and having it in 3 different versions means an even wider range of users can benefit from its slightly smaller size, lighter weight, and more mellow power characteristics. This sled really highlights my point about Yamaha's excitement being renewed. They were back in the game with new models consumers were begging for to add to the very complete spectrum of sleds consumers already love. The Viper, for example. This was the 4-stroke sled the industry had been waiting for. When it was released, it was the first time the industry had seen a 4-stroke sled that performed exactly like a 2-stroke sled. From power to throttle response to ride and handling, this was a performance sled that needed to make no excuses for what was under the hood. The almost cult following this sled has built since its introduction is incredible, and the number of Vipers out there with 20, 30, even 40 or 50,000 miles on them is staggering. A true testament to that legendary Yamaha reliability and durability. Of course, you can't talk about Yamaha sleds though without discussing the Sidewinder. I grew up in the days of the Indy Storm, the Mach Z, the Thundercat, and the SRX. The days when a hypersled, for the most part, rode bad, handled bad, and wasn't overly reliable, but went stupid fast when you hit the throttle. I still remember the first time I pulled the trigger on a Thundercat. It was almost a religious experience. And it was one that hadn't been duplicated until the Sidewinder. The idea that you could walk into a dealership and walk out with a factory turbocharged sled that made over 180 horsepower and could go over 120 miles an hour stock, well, that was stuff dreams were made of back then. Today, it's a reality. The Sidewinder is the modern hypersled, but unlike the hypersleds of the past, this one handles well, rides great, and is Honda Civic reliable. Yamaha has a whole host of other models designed for all different purposes, from the VK540 for the utility crowd to the Venture and Transporter series for the touring crowd, and of course, the Mountain Max lineup for the high altitude guys. This brings me to an interesting development in 2021. There was a time not that long ago where it was to be understood that Yamaha was a 4-stroke manufacturer only. Don't ask about 2-strokes because it wasn't happening. I think at the time it was a smart move to solidify the brand as the leader in 4-stroke power, and they were. But as time passed, it became clear that while 4-stroke power was the backbone of Yamaha's snowmobile division, there was a place for the 2-stroke in specific areas of the lineup. First was the Mountain Max. Now here's something I know about riding at altitude. The days when riding in the mountains was all about high marking, those days are gone. Now this doesn't mean people don't still love the challenge of going higher than the next guy, and there are still lots of guys who love climbing the most unclimbable chutes, but mountain riding has become much more about the tight and technical than the wide open bowls. The Sidewinder MTX is still a perfectly valid and much loved sled. It packs unreal horsepower potential into a perfectly capable chassis, but for the guys who want to ride in the tight trees, it's simply too much sled and too hard to maneuver. Which is why the Mountain Max 800 makes perfect sense for Yamaha. Light is always right at altitude, and the new Mountain Max is giving Yamaha mountain riders exactly what they need to get themselves into and out of the tightest, most technical areas on the mountain. Two-stroke power made sense here. The second place a two-stroke made sense was in the Transporter lineup. These sleds are designed to go anywhere and do just about anything. From trails to the backcountry, recreational riding to getting the job done, the Transporter is the right choice. And while at first glance it might seem like four-stroke power would be the best choice in a sled like this, a closer look reveals that this is the other place the two-stroke makes more sense. In the backcountry, where help is nowhere to be found, you need a sled that is easy to get unstuck and easy to work on. Four strokes have the bulletproof reliability, but what if the battery goes flat? What if you need to change the spark plugs at -30 Celsius? The two-stroke Transporter series have recoil backup starters. The two-stroke engines are lighter and smaller, so there's more room behind the body panels to get in and work on them. In a venture, I'm taking the four-stroke all day, but in a Transporter, I want that two-stroke motor. This is a long story and I've covered a lot of topics, but the point I'm trying to make is pretty straightforward. Yamaha isn't just a four-stroke manufacturer anymore. They have a broad spectrum of motor options and perfectly complete model lineup that covers every category. They're making moves that make their dealers more profitable and their customer sleds more valuable. They're helping to protect the future of this sport by giving parents the tools they need to foster a deep passion for it in their kids. And they've done all of this while maintaining the legendary reliability and durability they have always been famous for.
Trail Tech is sponsored by Princess Auto. Make it work.
Riding with your buddies and blasting your favorite set of twisty trails, stopping at the burger joint, and then continuing on until the sun is set and the only thing illuminating your way home is the headlight? That sounds like a good day of riding to me. And let's be honest, today's sleds are the best that we've ever seen. The best technology, the best performance, the best fuel and oil economy, and reliability like you'd never expect from a sled, especially with a high-end two-stroke. But one area that I can say without question we have not seen big improvement is versatility of an individual sled. What do I mean by that? Well, look to an ATV like the Polaris X2 with a convertible rear seat, or the Honda Pioneer 4 with its convertible rear seat cargo bed, and likewise the Yamaha R-Max. These are all off-road products that are adapting to different purposes or rider configurations. So what can you do in the sled industry to make the most out of your one-up trail rocket, getting ultimate versatility and more rider configurations, but not sacrificing the cool factor, which, let's be honest, is part of the reason why you bought your new one-up sled? Well, this year we have more options than ever, and not with an aftermarket product, but straight from the factory in a quick-to-convert multi-purpose platform that won't just give you more versatility, it'll give you passenger capacity as well. It's funny, but this year the biggest request from my wife for a sled to bring home on the weekends has been a two-up seat for our kids. But if I'm being real honest with you, two-up sleds have never been high on my list. And this is where Lock Ride Flex comes in. This is not your average lock and ride system, nor is it your typical passenger seat. This system is designed with your desire to still have a cool-looking one-up sled with the ability to quickly attach a two-up seat and answer the call of versatility. And while you might roll your eyes and say it can never be as good as a two-up sled, be careful, this isn't your typical two-up seat. First, let me tell you a little bit about Lock Ride Flex, because it's not your typical lock and ride system. It's crazy quick and super simple. In fact, it's the simplest system in the industry with a foolproof set of tunnel-mounted clips that receive a wide variety of accessories, but in this case, most importantly, the M2 two-up seat. Mounting the clips is easy, and when you're done, they don't stand out or look ugly. So to be clear, the same set of clips that'll take a gas tank, tunnel bag, or any other variety of accessories is the same clip that will accept the two-up seat in its entirety. Nothing else to mount, nothing else to support, that's it. So back to the seat. This is an M2 heated seat. There's also a basic version that doesn't come with heat, but when you buy this upgraded package, you get both heated grips as well as the heated seat base. And let me tell you, the technology didn't stop here. One of my biggest gripes in the past with quick on and off passenger seats is that many aren't quick, but mostly that the ones featuring heated grips use kind of a clunky wiring harness that doesn't feel factory installed. The M2 Lock and Ride has a really tidy pre-wired connector plug that gets mounted on the exterior of the rear trunk frame so that you can connect quickly in the future. It looks clean, and the best part of the Matrix sleds is that it comes designed right from the factory with this harness in the rear trunk. No splicing, no running wire, just plug and play. So as for the seat itself, it's a seat and base all in one unit, so it's really simple to use after you've built it the first time. When you've finished up, the beautiful part about this seat is the fact that you can go from a factory one-up rocket to a family-friendly two-up sled in a matter of just a simple push-down and one electrical connector. That's it. Maybe 30 seconds, worst-case scenario. Now that's simple. Now we aren't oblivious to the fact that adding a two-up seat and rider is going to change the weight dynamics of this sled, so we're going to put new torsion springs on the rear to account for that. And this is something that's recommended due to the extra weight on the rear suspension. It helps to keep both riders comfortable with compliant rear suspension characteristics, but also help keep the front skis planted and not remove too much ski pressure. It's nice that they go on pretty quick as well. While I'm talking about increased comfort, I have one more product that's going to give the passenger just a little bit more increased confidence as well. Footrests don't just give you better grip for getting on and off the sled. They help to keep your feet securely planted when cornering and placing more pressure on either foot. They install easily, and adding to our stealth install, they don't look out of place or likewise cause any interference when riding by yourself. Along with rider comfort is them knowing they can bring some things along with them as well, and the optional M2 seat bag is a cool compression molded nylon bag that slides in under the seat and keeps your passenger gear out of the elements. It installs in seconds and adds extra storage, which I'm pretty sure you can never have too much of on a snowmobile. So the versatility of adding a passenger is taken care of, but what if I want to go back to just high mile riding with the buddies saddlebagging for a weekend? Well, the great versatility of the rear lock and ride clips are that they don't just take the M2 seat. They also accept a variety of storage options like this sport tunnel bag. It's a tall 15-liter compression molded bag that doesn't just carry your stuff, it lets you carry it into the shop or hotel room after your long day's ride. It's completely sealed and has both buckles and a top carry handle. And like the two-up seat, it's simple to install with just pushing it down. No locking mechanism to interact with. Now, should you need an even larger bag, the Lock and Ride Flex system does offer more storage. However, the larger bag system will not work with the two-up seat due to its large size. The Adventure Tunnel Bag is huge, 35 liters huge, and leaves you enough room to pack your gear for an overnight stay. It's designed much like the Sport Bag with compression molding and security buckles. However, this bag is so big that it requires 2 more Lock and Ride Flex mounts at the rear of the tunnel. It uses 2 plastic tabs to lock under the rear of the Matrix seat, and then like the other Flex accessories requires only a push-down to secure. Removal like the other Flex accessories is easy with nothing more than just a simple lift on the release levers to allow you to take your seat or storage bags off in seconds. While I'm on the topic of storage, I want to show you a few more things that come in really useful. However, they don't require lock and ride, and they'll work on any Matrix. Firstly is the underseat liner bag. It's a nicely designed waterproof bag that goes under your seat of your Matrix and will keep things you put inside dry. It's also easy to remove as the zippered top handle also has a carry handle so that you can take the contents with you quickly. Designed similarly is the top glove box liner bag. It's a semi-rigid liner that goes behind your 7S display and features 4 separate storage compartments. I see this as very useful for putting your phone into as well as your wallet or insurance and registration. You can also drop in a few energy bars and even your toque with lots of room. It's a great storage space made better by a smartly designed, organized storage tray. Now, while I'm at the front of the sled, I think it's important to cover off wind protection. While the Matrix does do a good job from the factory, there's some folks out there who like a whole lot more. And this can be especially true when riding with a passenger. Adding front wind protection from a larger windshield like this tall version from Polaris means it'll push the wind up and over your passenger. It's made from optical grade polycarbonate and it installs quickly, which for me is a must so I can put my low windshield back on when I desire. But if I'm being honest, I've found that I really enjoy bigger windshields and the extra warmth it provides, especially at night when the temps really start to drop. While this was a big install, what I really think that it shows is that with innovative engineering solutions like Polaris has provided with the Lock and Ride Flex system, you truly can have the best of both worlds.
SNOWTRAX has been sponsored by MBRP Performance Exhaust, built for the victory lap, and by Arctic Cat Snowmobiles.
If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you click that like button. And we upload new content every week, so if you don't want to miss out on any of that stuff, make sure you subscribe so you get notifications whenever something new pops up.